What really led me to this obsession with chaos is that I've lived and worked in it for my entire career as an international aid and development worker. I'm the founder of the Curiosity Project, a nonprofit organization that drives social impact by providing health and entrepreneurial opportunities. We lead medical and training teams that travel to remote villages in low-income countries. The teams are multicultural, multi-generational, with widely varied personalities and skill sets. As you can imagine, every type of chaos that can happen is going to happen. We are going into new and uncertain situations with all of the same challenges that companies face. Challenging team dynamics, resource constraints, and unexpected changes to, well, anything and everything. In every moment, something is going to change. You just don't know when it's going to happen. As a global health worker, you learn how to prepare for chaos and what to do when it hits. In business and in life, we're put to the test not when things are going right, but when things get chaotic. How we react can be the difference between success and failure. You can't avoid chaos, but you can learn to use it to your advantage.
Hello! Welcome! Thank you, Mallory, for that great introduction, and thank you, artists and all of the team, for this amazing, exciting stuff that I've been learning about just this morning. So, welcome, all of you. So, thriving in chaos. What do you feel when you hear that word chaos? Like your life? All right, well, let's try something for a second. If you have like tennies on, like artists, you know, you got tennis shoes on. How about you guys stand up, and I want you guys starting to do some squats, okay? So you guys are doing squats. If you guys don't have tennies on, you guys are getting up, no tennies, and you're doing some jumping jacks. So no tennies, jumping jacks. If you have kind of like nice shoes on, you guys can maybe do some push-ups or some planks. You know, maybe just like get down, push-ups, planks. Yeah, good, yeah, awesome, okay, good, squats. You guys, I'm just kidding. Great job. Awesome. So, you guys, come on, we're talking about chaos. I gotta cause it. So, what is your relationship with it? How did that just make you feel? Anxious. I noticed some of you, I was directly looking at you with like tennies on, and you were still just sitting there like, I'm not doing this. So what does that word chaos make you feel? What is your relationship with it? Clearly, as you can tell from my introduction, mine is a little codependent. I kind of love it. And when I started doing a lot of research about all of you, obviously you do too. You work in the most like overworked industry with like the highest expectations I've ever seen, kind of lower wages than probably most of you deserve, and the turnover is unbelievable, and you have all these external factors that impacted you directly. And you're like, woo, let's go to work, yay, right? So obviously you have a high functioning relationship with chaos, whether you like it or not. Now, let's define the word chaos as confusion and disorder. How does that actually make you feel when you're in it? When things are a little confusing, when there's problems to solve, how do you feel in it? Like for me, I feel kind of excited. I sort of like the challenge of overcoming it. But what about others? Does everyone have that same experience? No. So here's what I want you to continue to think about as we go through this conversation, is that not everyone has the same relationship with chaos. You guys, I'm a mom of a kiddo who just finished their freshman year in college. Yay! But as I was thinking about everything that what we were talking about in this, I remember being that mom last year and the whole process of figuring out what school my kiddo was going to go to and all the amazing things that were coming in the mail and feeling like, oh my God, this is so overwhelming and I'm not even the one going to school. And so it's just so exciting to hear the part that you guys play in people's lives. And now seeing it from the flip side of seeing those text messages that were coming into me, seeing those emails that were helping clarify things for me as a parent. So this was the first time I've ever done it. I've never done this before. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And especially my kiddo had no clue and was looking to me like I should. So I find it very interesting for you all because you play such a vital role in this chaos of people's lives that's also such an exciting time with so many emotional connections to it. So I'm a cultural anthropologist. Yep, my dad is still trying to figure out if that's a real job as well, okay? But as a cultural anthropologist, I study human behavior, the interaction between human beings, especially when it deals with conflict. So I spent my early part of my career as a contractor in the State Department, working on leadership development programs, but they were actually tied to some anti-terrorist recruitment stuff, and then it moved into this higher level healthcare, leading teams and transitioning through all of these challenging times. But the human behavior aspect is the same. And you guys are not only dealing with your own teams internally, you also then have this next layer of the expectations of the outer reputation of the school, of all of your, that next layer of kind of like heaviness. And then you have your students, which is what drives it. And then you got all of us crazy parents like me last year being the ones totally freaked out. And so you're dealing with so much of the human component of this. And just because you're amazing at the connection and all of that goes on, I'm going to help you understand a little bit more of the psychological stuff that's going on when things change outside of our control and how we can navigate better, not only as ourselves, our teams, and everyone else around us. So we're going to keep talking about this relationship with chaos. So by a show of hands, what was on here? Oh, would you say that you have a great deal to do? Is that chaos necessarily? You have a great deal to do. That's it. Being busy is just having a great deal to do. So, how many of you have been on a hot air balloon ride? Like 5 of you, really? Okay, next meeting, okay, take a note. How many of you would like to go on a hot air balloon ride? See, okay. Now, I don't want to let this story dissuade you, okay? So don't let this story dissuade you. Is there any of you that are like, I absolutely have no desire to go on a hot air balloon ride whatsoever? Cool. Okay, you guys can be right at the end of this story. Congratulations now. All right, so I am a 5th generation Colorado native. I heard it's only people from Colorado that brag about how many generations they are, but 5th generation Colorado native, 4th generation family business. My great-grandfather started a trucking company and moved into a moving and storage company, some self-serve car washes, just kind of the whole family dynamic of drama and family business. But I'm not going to bore you with that. I'm going to take you back to a better time in 1989. Now, I know some of you may have just been born, but I'm a little older. But in 1989, my grandfather was the sponsor of the Hot Air Balloon Festival in Colorado Springs. And he had access to this giant strawberry balloon. So he thought, what an incredible opportunity to give my one and only daughter, my mom, and my most favorite, super cute granddaughter, me, this experience of a lifetime of going on a hot air balloon ride. So we show up to the park and there's balloons everywhere. And we walk up to the giant strawberry and we meet Jack, the 25-year veteran pilot, because my grandfather's gonna make sure we have the best of the best taking us up on this experience. So Jack's awesome, super knowledgeable, confident, helping us load in the basket. He starts throwing the sandbags in. It's this gorgeous sunny day, so he takes off his coat, throws it to his wife. He jumps in the basket. His helpers are loosening the wires, and he hits that starter, and he pulls that cord, and what's the sound it makes? And the heat just blows down on you, and I don't care how old you are or what life experiences you've had, you are in a basket being lifted up by a balloon with fire. I mean, it's really kind of bizarre if you think about it, but it's science in the making altogether. It's incredible. And honestly, you guys, I'm pretty young, so I didn't ask any clarifying questions like, how high do we go? How do we get back down, right? I have no idea. I'm just sort of up for the fun. So as we start taking off, my grandfather didn't get in the basket. He got in his Jeep because he was going to track the balloon as it was going. And as we're going, we just keep going higher and higher. I can't even believe how high you actually go. So high that my grandfather's Jeep is now off in the distance and it just looks like a little Hot Wheels car. It's unbelievable. So for those of you who have been, you may remember this point. You reach this elevation where the air just seems to stop. It becomes very quiet, very calm, almost a little eerie. And you have this beautiful view, but you just kind of are feeling the like, weird. Well, in that moment of our, what seemed like out of nowhere, this microburst of air blasts through the basket, and it just blew the pilot light right out. That's what Jack did. He went, and he hits the starter, nothing. He starts reaching in all of his pockets. Yeah, his face now turns to panic. He starts rummaging through all these leather bags. He's throwing stuff everywhere, cursing up a storm, and he picks up these old white crusty helmets and he throws them at my mom and I. Get these on, squat down in the corner because we're going down, and when we hit, we're gonna hit hard. What? So now it's total chaos. Like, our reality was not like our expectations at all. And I am like, just kind of like in total confusion, right? My mom, now looking back as a mom at this story, cracks me up because she's trying to put this helmet on me that is never gonna save my life. My head's popping around it and it's like way too big. Her hands are shaking. She's like, it's gonna be okay, right? Tears are like streaming down her face. Jack is like working these ropes because there's a huge highway on one side and this huge field on the other that I know now he was navigating us towards. But what about my grandfather? My Stinson hat wearing control freak grandfather is on the ground watching this experience that he's created for his beloved family, and it is totally out of his control. Can you imagine? Now, the best part about a very scary experience like this is that I don't actually remember the falling portion, but I do remember right before the impact, Jack starts yelling at us. He's like, are you ready? Like, what? No, ready for what? He's like, all right, get ready. And we're like, yeah, and he's like, squat down. And I'm like, I don't know, we're like, sit down, hold on, and then just bam. And when we hit, you guys, we hit so hard on the corner of the basket that it just ejected us out of the basket like a bunch of apples tumbling through the field. I have like sticks in my hair, I'm bleeding, my arms all gashed open. Obviously, we all survived, okay? I told you this is not a motivational story to go hot air balloon riding. Do not let it dissuade you. Lots of changes have been made, I'm sure. But I remember looking up and seeing that the only thing that saved our lives, truly, is that the giant strawberry had wrapped itself around one of those huge highway light poles. Jack actually aimed for it so it would help break our fall, and here we are. Ta-da! So, as I said, I would still go hot air balloon riding. It's gonna be great. Bring a lighter, come prepared. I haven't been since. People ask me that all the time, but I'm not afraid. I just haven't seeked it out, really. But anyway, very dramatic story about chaos. But actually, y'all, this is just how life feels. This is exactly the most perfect representation of life. Because I joke that I'm a chaos causer. Anyone here that sometimes they may be chaos causers? Yeah, I'm sure a few of you, for sure. Artists, yes. But the thing is that we set out with great intentions. It's never to create harm. It's to create great innovation and change and things that we think are great ideas. And then something outside of our control changes. It's not the busy that is the chaotic. I believe it's when the outside factors hit the busy that life can become a little chaotic, the unexpected events. And isn't it true, always in the quiet moments when things are kind of going well, you're like, oh crap, what's next? Or any of you have little kids or had little kids or puppies, remember in those quiet moments is when you're like, oh my God, what just got destroyed, right? It's always in that moment. So let's think about this for a minute. Let's differentiate two very key factors. Because I believe people say all the time, like, oh, my life is so chaotic. I'm like, no, it's very busy. You have a great deal to do. But I believe it's when the unexpected event hits the busy that it could potentially become chaotic. So crisis has a bad reputation as a word. So let's talk about crisis more as the unexpected event. Because a crisis can come in all shapes and sizes. And it's really based on the impact that the crisis has of how big a crisis actually is. So let's just talk about it as the unexpected event. And like I said, chaos being confusion and disorder, sort of the reaction to the event. So, does chaos always happen when the unexpected event occurs? Not necessarily, right? So bring this to your own life, right here, right now. Now, I know that we always take the crummy stuff and make it good, but let's talk about just initially when something changes outside of your control, but it's good. Now, you probably influenced it, you actually impacted it, you maybe even created it, but still something else has to happen. Like all those applications you guys put together actually work, right? You like do the test and all of a sudden it works, you're like, oh, yes, right? Those students that you were working so hard on actually do sign the contract, their check clears and their butt is in the seat. Oh, and they reach graduation and become awesome and then donors and you're like, woohoo, right? I mean, we're going pretty long on that, but let's think about it. How does it actually make you feel? What are some of the feelings? What about when your kiddo makes a sports team or does well on a test that they were studying for? Or you're running late and the parking karma gods shine upon you and you rip around the corner, slowly and safely of course, and you see a parking space and you're like, urge, yes, right? It happens, not often, but it does. You didn't even have to parallel park. But how does it make you feel? What are some of those actual feelings? Pride, excitement, good, right? They do happen. Joy, relief. How many of you have little kids? Okay, so you actually left in the morning. Everyone had all their clothes and shoes on, including you, and no one was freaking out or crying, and you all got to where you needed to be on time. If it hasn't happened yet, it will only once or twice, but it's really amazing when it does. But what does that feel like? That's like pure joy. It's a moment of like, oh my God, it worked, right? Think about a big project or a deadline that you have, and it actually comes together and works. The reason why I share this with you guys is because I notice things a lot. I study human behavior. And what I hear when I observe humans out in public is never employees sharing about things like, oh my gosh, can you believe we got this done? Or can you believe this happened? It's more of the complaining side of all the things that didn't get noticed or all the crummy stuff going on. I'm inviting you guys right now to remember that this kind of stuff does happen all day long, every day. And if you think it, say it. If you see something, say something. I am telling you this will be the most valuable thing in your team because we are all working so hard, and especially your newer team members or your newer parents or students that are feeling super overwhelmed. Even if you just notice one of these things, send them that quick text, send them that quick update. If you think it, say it. Just because you just assume they know that they're doing a great job, or you're like, oh yeah, she just always crushes it, so I don't, she just knows she's got it. Then say it. Send a quick text on the break. Do something and let people know, because I am telling you more than ever right now, celebrating these small wins is what's going to rejuvenate us, because how good does it feel even when we hear it? I just got a text actually just from a client of mine a few weeks ago that was out of the blue and so unexpected for someone like me to receive something like that. I just almost fell out of my chair and it felt amazing. So it's usually the ones that are crushing it the most, that feel like they don't need it. They're probably the ones you may want to hit with a quick like, hey, I noticed that. It's pretty good. Because I'll be dead honest, as a mom of teenage boys, so now I have one who's going into his senior year and one who's going into his sophomore year at the School of Mines in South Dakota, is they will say things to me like, Mom, you only notice like the bad stuff, or you're always on our case about the big stuff, or you celebrate the big wins really well, but you didn't even see me studying last week. I'm like, no, because I just expect that you do those things. But I want you to just notice that we may even do it in our families, that people may need, and it shocked me. I'm a leadership coach, and even I felt like kind of a jerk, like, wow, I'm not even celebrating some of these small wins on my kiddos. And so I invite you, being around that age group so much right now, and as confident as they act and as cool as they feel, they really want to be celebrated for these small things that make them feel good. Like, oh, that was awesome, you got your application done in time. Seems silly, but right? Those are small things that can go into some of these automated things that I would add in as some of the celebrations and congratulating them, because they are a generation that does like to be celebrated for these small wins. So help them see that you see them. And I promise you, you're gonna get a lot of traction on that. So, now let's flip it. Let's flip it to the outside of our control that sucks. All right? Tell me some recently. How many of you traveled here yesterday with super fun travel experiences? Yeah. I don't know. I was on the flight yesterday next to a whole bunch of people that were in so much travel drama, and I'm like, oh, thank you. I'm so glad that's not me. But I know a lot of you probably experienced that. So something just changed outside of your control. You receive an email, you get a text, you get a phone call, you're on the airplane and they tell you your flight is now delayed or canceled. What is the very first thing you say to yourself? Be real. Thank you. Oh, blank. I don't know about you guys, but for me, now, if the school phone number pops up on my phone, and maybe when they were younger, I was like, oh no. Now I'm like, oh shit. Because I'm telling you, it is never them calling me, being like, hey, Corinne, we're just calling to let you know Chase is having a great day, right? That's not the phone call I'm getting, and I'm probably not even in the same state while it's happening. So it happens. But what I want you to understand, it is so human to have that reaction of feeling frustrated, of feeling angry, feeling disappointed. And I think sometimes we feel as leaders or as we develop that we should move past this. Yes, we don't want to stay there, but I want you to understand it is so human. My now husband, right? But my now husband is former special operations. Even our top trained military of the world are going to have a microsecond of, oh, blank. It's human. If you don't have that, we can have the sociopath conversation separately and we can talk about it. But I want you to really let yourself feel it. I think we should just move past it. We shouldn't stay there, but move past it, but acknowledge that it's going to exist. So here's what happens, though. We actually have these 3 default reactions that happen. So we get hit with the email, the phone call, something that sucks, a new goal that needs to be met, or something totally outside of our control. And our first thought is, oh, blank. And then the first group is the ones that are like, nope, not it. Good luck with that. That's not in my job description. That sounds like your job. Have fun with that. The next group is the blamers. They're the ones that are like, this is ridiculous, this is so stupid, why are we even doing this? The economy sucks, students suck, parents suck, right? Like everyone is everyone else's fault of why we cannot meet our goals is because the fall of human society is everyone's fault outside of ours, and we're just gonna keep blaming it out there. My next group is the complainers. While it's happening, they're just on the sidelines talking crap about it. Usually some blame is getting in there, but no joke, you guys. Just observe this. For any of you that were on the airplane, because this happened also to me yesterday, the minute the pilot gets on, he's like, ladies and gentlemen, I hate to inform you of this, but we're gonna have a delay. Our delay was due to, we had too much fuel on our plane. He's like, just so you know, the plane is fine. We just have way too much fuel. I don't know, they changed the plane, so I'm gonna deplane you all. And right when he said that, holy smokes. I watched a few people just sit there in total avoidance, like not moving. I watched some start blaming, this airline is such a piece of, and they're blaming everything and blaming the pilot, blaming whoever, and then there's some that are just complaining about it, like, I can't even believe this is happening, it's the worst day of my life, and blah, blah, blah. All right, now, I want you to take it back to when I asked you guys to start doing some exercises. I had some avoiders. Not going to point you out, but you were supposed to be doing push-ups and planks, and you were just like straight up, I'm not doing that. Yep. There's a few of you that may have been like, Mallory, why the heck did you hire this girl? She is so dumb. Like, artists, seriously, you approve this? So there may have been some blame going on. And then a few of you probably just complained to each other, or even in your mind. Like, this is so dumb. Why are we even doing this? I'm not doing this. This is stupid. Should I have even sat here? I shouldn't even come here. Why did I wear these shoes? Just start thinking about your internal dialogue. It is so human, you guys. It is so natural that we automatically go to one of these places. And to be honest, if you're sitting in this room, our default reaction is almost always blame. It's hard to hear, but it does fit into our solution solving, because we say, oh crap, how did this happen? We usually blame someone for a second, but then what do? Who do you actually blame? Listen to your internal dialogue. You're like, what did I miss? How did this happen? What could I have done different? If you're sitting in this room, you're a high-achieving leader, and it is so hard for you to get out of this. Me too. But I want you to be aware that it exists. And I believe that there's no value. There's no value in avoiding, blaming, and complaining. And to be honest, you guys know that too, because the show must go on. How lovely would it be to sit in avoiding, blaming, and complaining? You don't have to do anything, right? You get to just avoid it, blame, complain, talk about it. Nothing gets solved, and unfortunately, the roles that you're in, that's not really the option. Like, the show must go on. Those start dates are the start dates. That's just how it is. So let's look back to the hot air balloon story. Because in the hot air balloon story, was it total chaos? It was scary, but was it full confusion and disorder? Not necessarily. Jack was giving us very specific instructions, as scary as they were, but let's talk about what would have made it worse. Well, one, we couldn't avoid it. We were already falling out of the sky. But what if while we were falling out of the sky, my mom started blaming Jack? You idiot, how'd you forget your lighter? I thought you were an expert, this is ridiculous. And then she starts complaining to me, Corinne, we're never going hot air balloon riding again. This is the worst trip of my life, I'm writing a terrible Yelp review. Blah. Like, as we're falling out of the sky. You guys, it doesn't change anything, but I believe it would have made it very chaotic. Think about back on the airplane. Think about in this room. If we get stuck in avoiding, blaming, and complaining, that's when chaos starts to show up. Chaos isn't just this external factor. It's that reaction, and it's the reaction of staying in, avoiding, blaming, and complaining that starts to create it. So the more that you start to process it in that way, you can see, okay, I am going to have this reaction. People around me are going to have this reaction. And our job is to help move them out of the reaction and into the response, to help ourselves. Because think about anything chaotic in your life. What's happening in it? Any meeting that you've been sitting in, anything that has sort of sucked, what is happening? People are usually stuck in one of these three things. So we're going to keep talking about how do we move ourselves and how do we move each other out of it very quickly. One is just being aware of it. Because the truth is we do this very quickly. Like I said, we know that there's no value in those ABCs. So we move to that ACE response. We ace it. So what do? We're like, oh crap, how'd this happen? What did I miss? And then what? What do we do next? What do you think the A stands for? We assess the situation. What's even happening? What's even important? What am I even trying to accomplish? What's the goal here? We create a plan and we execute on it. Boom. It is so easy when you're by yourself. Let's just think about this. Maybe let's take any morning. Let's just pretend this morning that you drove here. Some of you may have. But you were driving here and you're by yourself and there's a huge traffic jam and you see it on your GPS and you're like, oh crap, right? And you get mad for a second and you're like, I should have left earlier, blah, blah, blah. You go through all that. And then you just go here really quickly. You assess the plan, you create it, and you execute on it. Easy. Put your significant other or your mother in the car with you. Tell me where the ABCs show up. Right here at the assessing, right? Get honest. If you had someone else in the car with you when a traffic jam all of a sudden happens out of nowhere, do you do the same ACE, super assess the situation, create a plan, execute on it? No, I would have blamed my husband, like, why didn't we leave on time? Why, this always happens when we go together. Why did we even pick this route? Why are we even driving this car, right? I mean, the whole thing. And then someone would create a plan and you'd go to execute on it, and what happens? Those ABCs creep right back in. I don't know why we're even doing this. This is the stupidest plan I've ever seen. Okay? You guys starting to see it? Do you see this at work? Do you see this in your personal life? It happens all the time. So our goal is to continue to move people through this. So I did train as a wildland firefighter. I don't know, maybe it's the fire from the balloon. I'm not sure the psychological connection. But the only reason why I tell you this is because I think it's a very valuable visual right now, is that wildland fire is just like chaos. Something very unpredictable is actually very predictable. And do you know how we fight most wildland fire? With fire. And it's never just extinguishing the big fire, it's actually removing the fuel. And so I want you to visualize this for yourself, because what I see is that you have all these big fires burning that actually are pretty outside of your control. The issues with high school graduation rates, the tuition increase in costs, the fear of tuition prices, all of the pressure you're feeling from the outside world of the value of higher ed, and all of these things that are impacting you are all these big fires that are burning. But they're not fully in your control. These are things that are actually outside factors, but you're very aware of them. You've already built the barrier for it. You've dug that fire line. You're watching it, you're working on it, but you're over here setting spot fires all the time, trying to make sure, one, this doesn't explode over here, but you're trying to find the opportunities out here to kind of make sure this one doesn't just keep exploding. So the challenge is, though, to the people around us, it looks sometimes like we're not paying attention to that. And it's more like, duh, we got that. We already know. We're so aware of all that BS that's going on. It's outside of our control. We're working on the stuff that we actually can control. But trying to convince higher leadership, trying to convince the outside world of that is difficult, because it looks like we're not tackling the big things, but we already put the barrier in place. You guys actually totally know what you're doing. None of this is new. It's just totally exaggerated. And you love what you do. You love setting these fires. But the other thing that's challenging, though, is that, like I said, something very unpredictable is actually predictable. It's chaos theory. So in Wildland School, first of all, I was a little disappointed. I thought we were gonna like jump out of airplanes and do all this cool stuff. You don't. You pretty much just dig fire line. But the other thing we did was just study fire behavior. So something very unpredictable is actually very predictable. So do we know when or where a wildland fire is gonna start? Never. Do you know when there's gonna suddenly be a global pandemic that shuts down your entire campus? No. Do you know when there's gonna be a change in policy or a change in financial aid requirements or a change in, you don't know, they just hit. You have no idea when or where they're gonna come from. But you can start to prepare on how people are going to react and behave. Because one, they are gonna freak out for a second. Everyone, including us, are gonna have an oh shit moment. And then you're gonna either avoid it, blame it, or complain about it for a minute. But how quickly can you move out of it? Because there's no value in it. So the idea is that you are never, ever, ever going to be chaos proof. I know that sounds a little bit like, well, wait a minute, why are we even here? No, you're not, you guys. We're humans. We're dealing with stuff that's changing all the time outside of our control. But you can be more chaos ready by understanding how it's going to impact you, how you're going to feel when it hits you, to understand that it's human to have a reaction of disappointment and frustration, but understanding that there's no value in staying there. We can't stay there. It does nothing, but give yourself a minute to feel it. So I created a chaos action plan because it's very different than crisis management plans. You guys work in a field that needs extensive crisis management plans. The bigger the crisis, the easier it is to deal with. Really think about that. When real lives or significant financial impact is happening, no one gets stuck in the ABCs. If a fire broke out right now in here, you think we're gonna stand around and be like, oh my God, artists, I can't believe this happened. Why are we even in this building that a fire happens? And oh, this is ridiculous. Or what are we doing? No. No, we're gonna assess the plan, create it, and execute on it. The bigger the crisis, the easier it is to deal with. What I'm talking about with you today is all the little things. That new employee that just kind of keeps showing up late, or that new process that no one wants to think about, but like everyone just kind of keeps ignoring, or the new goals that were set that seem so ridiculous, but no one will say anything at the meeting, right? It's all of these small little things that keep happening that start to create the chaos, because people all get stuck in the either avoiding it, blaming, or complaining. So our goal is to continue to observe that that's what's happening. So first, let's look at this prepare portion. One is, it's here. So the prep part of the model is understanding that it's never gonna go anywhere. It's here no matter what. Does it really suck sometimes? Absolutely. But it's human and there's no way to avoid it. And I think sometimes you guys, you feel all this pressure like you should be able to chaos-proof your department. You should be able to chaos-proof your university. No, you can't. You just can't. Are there tools and are there ways to continue to make things easier? And do we learn from our mistakes to keep implementing new changes? Yeah, but you guys, we're human. And all of these experiences that are happening is, seriously, the funniest thing I think about your industry when I think about it is that you're dealing with people for the first time of an experience every time, right? It's like always sort of that first time. Now maybe some of the parents is like their second or third kiddo, but not for that kiddo who's in front of you. It is their first time every time. And for those of you who have been in it for a really long time, sometimes we forget what it feels like when things are the first time. We're so comfortable in this chaos. We're so comfortable in this change. We forget that that person in front of us, it's their very first experience of feeling that way. I have to remind my oldest son all the time because he's like, Mom, you're a leadership coach. You like navigate like crazy, terrorists and all this. And I'm like, I've never done this before. It's actually my first time. When we were going through the whole college admission process, it was so scary. And it was my first time. How was I supposed to know? I tried to go to all the high school things and do that, but I work full time. It was insane. And you're getting 10,000 emails about it and you feel like you're failing at everything anyway. It's my first time too. And you guys are the experts. We're looking to you to make it easier for us, to help us feel not afraid. Because here's the deal. Why do people get stuck in avoiding, blaming, and complaining? What does it give them? If I can blame you, what do I feel? What do I feel? If I can blame you or complain about something, how do I feel? What do you think? Secure. Relief, right? I feel in control. I feel like it's not my problem. I feel maybe like absolved. I feel safe. You guys, this is the most valuable concept you will take away from today. It should be on a sticky note. It should be in front of you for the rest of your lives. The only way you will ever move yourself and others forward in times of uncertainty is this. Clarity equals security. Now, the funny thing about that is by me blaming someone, that's even offering clarity. Human beings are always trying to seek the clarity. So the blaming, the complaining, the avoiding is even clarity in itself. So it makes me feel safe. So remember in school, Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Right now, you guys, we're in a time where almost every human being has reverted back to self-preservation mode. People ask me all the time as a cultural anthropologist, they will say things like, Corinne, why do people suck right now? Why are people so selfish? I'm like, right now? No, just kidding. But I actually don't think that's true. I think that there's a huge lack of clarity that's making people feel unsafe. And when people don't have clarity, they're going to try and seek it. Because all they need is to feel safe. So your goal right now, at least for the next few years, is to understand that human beings right now are in that lowest level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They don't feel secure. So remember, once they feel safe, they can move to the connection with people and all of that, and wanting to stay, and then you move to those higher levels. But right now, everyone is in this self-preservation mode. Am I going to survive? So every person is listening to you through a filter right now of what do I need to be worried about. It's very different than what's in this for me. Remember like a few years ago, you could really motivate people by like all the incentives and the exciting things and what's in it for me and how cool our campus is and how cool this is and how cool that is and how cool that is. Now kids are like, I just want to know, will I graduate and get a job? And can I pay for this? And is my living situation going to suck super bad? And maybe food I care about too. Depends on the kid, right? But really, you guys, right now, people are worried about themselves. And so you must be listening and speaking into a filter of how does this impact me? People are in self-preservation. Your students, your families, every single person that you interact with, the lesson and the way that you speak to people right now has to be flipped. Has to be flipped to this idea of what are you worried about? What are you worried about? Not what are you excited about? Because people are a little bit freaked out right now. They don't have enough clarity sometimes to even be excited. But once they feel safe, they can move to the excitement. So if that helps you guys as you start to think about your processes, this will be a really valuable concept, because I think what I see all over the board in every industry is everyone jumps to the benefits. They jump to the excitement. And a few years ago, it worked. I promise you it did, because people's needs were met. But right now, they're not. And people are insecure, they're scared, and they need to feel secure. And the only way you can do that is by providing clarity, because no one's going to ask you for it. They're too scared to even ask for clarity, because they might feel like, well, I should already know this. I read this amazing article that Mallory sent me before I came here. I don't know if any of you guys read that article in the Chronicle of why why you guys are all burning out and quitting. Maybe you guys read it. Okay, first of all, not trying to, it was so academic because it was 30 pages long. I'm like, can we throw this through your AI for a summary, please? Because the whole point was you guys are burnt out, it's overwhelming, all the same factors, but 30 pages of it for one. But, which made me then laugh because I'm like, oh my God, this is probably every day of your life at work, like getting like emails and things and requirements that you're like, could we have just bullet pointed this out? Like, seriously, that's how I felt about that article. But the interesting thing about it was they were interviewing different admissions counselors and different people, and one of them was so beautiful because it was about this Hispanic woman who she was the first generation to go to college. And she was so motivated by her experience and to share all these experiences because she didn't have a great first time experience. And the main one was that she showed up to move-in day and she told her parents, don't come to move-in day because I don't want to look like a baby. I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing. And then she saw all the families there taking pictures, and it was like the most special memory-building move-in day of her life, or of every student's life. And she went, I knew at that moment I wanted to be the one that could provide that information for people of underrepresented groups that may not know that. And I thought, you're right, because how would she have ever known that? If she's the first one in her family to go to college, how would she have ever known that? And as admission counselors, maybe we didn't even think to share that because we just assume everyone knows something like that. And so I thought that was really profound because it really spoke to this clarity equaling security. She was afraid to look stupid or like she wasn't prepared by not having her parents there. And it ended up kind of flipping. And she wasn't going to ask for clarity, like, oh, should I invite my parents? No, we have to sort of pre-think these things because no one's going to ask for it right now. So let's go through it for a minute. The unexpected has hit. Pick anything in your life because the concept works the same. All right, so what do you actually do then? What I did is I took the ACE response and I broke it down a little bit because I want you to sort of see how it works, see what our brain does. So for those of you online, I want you guys to think about it the same. And if you have a piece of paper in front of you, this is helpful. If not, it's okay too. Just think about it in your mind. But remember, the goal is to always move from the reaction to the response because we're going to have a reaction. That's normal. But it's the goal is to how quickly can we move to this response? How quickly can we get out of it? How quickly can we provide clarity so we can feel safe to even move out of it? So I want you just to think about for a minute some of your current threats or challenges. What are you facing right now in your life, specifically? Just think about a few. Like, what are they specifically? And it could be in your family as well. I mean, it works the same. The process is the same. So what are some current threats or challenges specifically you're facing right now? Maybe you're short-staffed. Maybe you have, anyone want to give me anything? What do you got? What's a challenge that you have?
Preparing for retirement.
Say it again. Preparing for retirement. Not enough money. Yep. What else? Got one? Yeah, your staff turnover. All right, so I want you to just pick one. I know you got like a whole list. Some of you are still writing, but just pick a few. And I want you to start to think about this. It's not the actual threat, the crisis, the challenge that sucks. It's the result that it has. So I want you to start to identify the actual impact. So what? Not so what like it doesn't matter, but let's say staff turnover. What's the overall impact of staff turnover right now or being short-staffed? More work for your current people. It probably is limiting your growth because you're not even focused on the things you're supposed to be, now you're focused on recruiting like staff instead of students, and then you got to train all those people, and then you got to get them, make sure they're a good fit, and they understand all this new stuff, and so now you're doing a job that isn't even your job, and your other job isn't getting done, so now on the weekends you're doing that job. Am I speaking your life? Yeah. And so keeps going into the impact. What's the impact on you? Now you're overwhelmed, you're exhausted, your family's getting annoyed with you because they're like, what are you doing? Like, why are you still working? Gosh, right? Can you be with us for 5 minutes? You always have to have your phone on? You're like, yep, I do. And it's really hard, right? And all this pressure is going on. These are real things that are happening. So I want you to really think about the challenge versus the impact. They're real. They are happening right now. So I want you to think about it and then read this. Now, I'm not being like funny or dismissing your challenges. And I did steal this from, my special operations husband, borrowed it. But it's more of a mindset because these things are happening. There are real threats and real challenges that are happening that are outside of your control that have real impacts currently. And they suck. And some of them really suck. But here's the idea with this mindset. This is a mindset. Now, you don't really want to say it to people. It's not super effective to just say it to them. But as you start to embrace it into your culture and into yourself, it starts to think like this. Because most of the work I do overseas and most of the work I do on the police department, you guys, it sucks. Like, it actually sucks. A lot of the work that you guys have to do sucks. But it doesn't mean it's not worth doing. It doesn't mean that you're going to quit because it sucks. But it's funny that we suddenly live in a time where when something sucks, people are like, this sucks, I quit. It's like, how about, no, it just is hard. And what we want to do is we don't want to be like, suck it up. That's what my grandfather would have said, suck it up, rub some dirt in it, suck it up. But it also can't be the super flip kumbaya, like, oh, it's all going to be great. Just get to the other side. It's fun, right? You've been with those people. You're like, no, actually, it just sucks right now. So maybe there's a moment of the suck and then embracing it, looking at it, taking a look and saying, what's actually happening right now? These things have real impacts. I am overworked right now. I am overwhelmed. I do feel a lot of strain of my job. But it's not forever. Nothing in life is forever. Nothing. And you chose to be here. You weren't assigned to this job. I work with doctors from Cuba all over the world. They didn't choose where they were placed. They were placed there. I also work with students in most of East Africa that they take an exam in 8th grade. And in 8th grade, that exam determines their entire life. They wanted to be an engineer and they did crummy on the math section. Too bad. You now work at the local hotel and that's it. There's no ILP, there's no do-over, there's no like, let's try again. No, it's just how it is. But we're in a place still, and you give opportunity to people that is so profound, that changes the courses of entire generations and families, not just in America, but around the entire world. You know, most of the students I work with from around the world, what they do and what they go through to try to attend university in America, it can make me cry thinking about it and what it does to the transformation of those families, of entire generations, of entire communities. You impact that. And are there days that really suck? Yes. But what's it all for? It's pretty actually amazing what we're up to. It's pretty amazing what the impact you make. It's not like you're making some dumb widget at a factory. You are irreplaceable because of the energy and the stories and the experience that you bring. And yes, all of the AI and amazing tools, that makes all your jobs so much easier so you can strengthen the things that you are. It's your stories, it's your commitment that brought you to be where you are, that speaks to these students and to these families, that helps inspire and push them through the suck. Because some days just suck. But I want you guys to think about this. What are you actually worried about? So when you think about the challenges, right? And you think about, yes, these things are actually happening. We're overwhelmed, we're understaffed, we're underpaid, I don't have enough money, right? I'm trying to figure out how to do retirement. We go all the way to this worst case scenario. Instead of just staying in the actual impact, we're already over here, like our whole staff quit, we're never gonna meet our numbers, I'm gonna get fired, oh my God, I can't pay for my kids' hockey team, and now I'm a disappointment to my family, and now we're like living in a tent on the street. Come on, you guys. You're never going to let those things happen. You can be aware of them. But here's something my grandmother used to say, is quit borrowing trouble from the future. Quit borrowing trouble from the future. You got plenty of it right here. And if you take it step by step, it's all doable. But there are days that suck. And some days you're going to have to embrace it. But I'm telling you, quit borrowing trouble from the future. Be aware of it, but don't live into it. Don't let it become a reality, because how many meetings have you sat in where people want to be right about the worst case scenario? They're like, we're never going to make this goal. It's never going to happen. Do you see what's going on? And they're going to tell you all the reasons why you can't do it. You guys, I've worked in government and nonprofit my whole life. That's all we do. We try to convince everyone of why we can't do something, but you need to keep giving us more money so we can try. All right? Like, I get the game, okay? But if you think about it psychologically, what's happening? I'm creating clarity, because I'm creating clarity on the things I know won't work. That makes me feel safe. You're trying to make me go somewhere I've never been before. That's scary. So how we do that is, one, is we refocus back on our mission. What is the mission, right? What is your mission? What even got you here? Now, missions can be a little overwhelming, though, in times like this. Remember in that intro video, you guys saw those mannequins and dolls on the tables, like maybe some training going on, and you're like, what is happening? I'm confused. So most of the work I do now is in infant and maternal health. So we train midwives around the world. So let's say my mission is, I want to make sure every birth in the world is attended by a trained, skilled midwife. Now, is that ever going to happen? No. But it's an inspiring mission. It helps me stay motivated. I want to fight for that. I'm not scared to do that. And it's pretty inspiring, gets other people, because who doesn't want to save babies, right? Like, it's a good mission. But let's say, now, again, it doesn't matter if we're in the middle of the Congo saving babies or we're in your office. It is the exact same story, because we're human beings. So you guys all decided to join this mission. So put yourself in this story. All of you are like, yay, let's go train midwives. And you joined the mission. And you had a bunch of clarity ahead of time that made you feel safe enough to join it. You're clear on the mission. You're clear on your roles, like expectations. It's pretty clear. But let's say, like, you guys have all been a few times. You're pretty experienced. You guys are brand new. Some of you have never been before, but you're still up for it. And we head out, and we're going through the airport, and then we get on the airplane, and we travel, and we're flying, and we keep flying, and we finally get to Kinshasa. And we land in Kinshasa, and we start going through customs. And all of a sudden, when we go through customs, the custom agent takes half of our training materials. I'm like, shit, right? And you guys who've been with me are like, darn it. And we're like, You guys who haven't been are like, oh no, how are we gonna do this? And we reassure you, and we're like, it's fine, it happens all the time, we'll figure it out, don't worry, right? And we just head off, and we're like, this sucks, but we're gonna figure it out. And we get into our location where we're doing our training. And there's now obviously been a huge miscommunication with my in-country partners, because I'm looking around and I'm going, uh-oh, because I see all the midwives are lined up. They're all ready for their training. But I look over to the other half of the square of this town, and the entire local community is also lined up to be seen for medical care. I'm like, uh-oh. Because we weren't there to do medical care. We do that sometimes, but not on this trip, right? We're there to do the training. So those ABCs are creeping right in, you guys. I'm blaming my in-country partners. I'm blaming my staff at home. I'm blaming, and there's all this complaining happening, and all the ABCs are in full force. And then 2 of my translators don't show up. One girl's throwing up. She's sick. Some are arguing, right? It's just Wednesday. Think about your day. That's how your day is every day. As funny as that sounds, it's the exact same story, right? Staff's not here, people are complaining, supplies get screwed up, the whole thing, it happens every day, but the show must go on. But what if, as the leader in that moment, I kept saying to all of you guys, hey, we're gonna train every midwife in the world. You'd be like, Corinne, you're an idiot. Can we just focus on this training right here, right now? This is what we sound like sometimes. This is what our leadership sounds like to us sometimes. Okay, thanks, I got what the big goal is. It's a little overwhelming right now. Can we just focus on this day, this week? What needs to happen right now? So if you feel overwhelmed or the people around you feel overwhelmed, pull the mission in. It's not going anywhere. The big mission's always going to be there. You're always going to keep focusing on the student experience to have an incredible life of education and opportunity. You're always going to keep working on that. But sometimes that one's a little overwhelming. And when you feel like you can't do that, pull it in. Right here, right now. And how you're going to do it is by creating micro missions. It was what you do naturally all the time. You do this so naturally that it's so easy for you. But sometimes we forget of how we communicate it out. Even for our students, for our team members, our new ones. So I'll give you another example. I have a little sister. She's 9 years younger than me. You can't make this stuff up, okay? My birthday is 7/12, hers is 12/7. Now, the challenges you guys are facing are pretty actually universal among industries. And I speak to a lot of industries, but every industry feels like it's the worst for them. But it really is true of the factors that you're facing. And these expectations are high. So my little sister recently got her recent job, like dream job, working for Topgolf. And she's in charge of HR to open the new Topgolf location that is opening up outside of Boise, Idaho in Meridian, okay? So she's been in HR for about 5 minutes. She's not as that experienced, but she's so excited, you guys. She flies off to corporate training in Phoenix for 3 weeks. You are so stoked that you're on your team because she's wearing the gear, she's singing the cheers, she's living the culture. She loves Topgolf. She's so excited to be there. And she gets back, and her boss says to her, "All right, Jessie, we have 6 weeks till opening day." The story may sound familiar for you guys. We have 6 weeks till opening day. And in 6 weeks, we need to hire, onboard, and train 400 employees. My sister called me that night crying her eyes out. And she said to me, she calls me Corey, and she goes, "Corey, I have to quit." I was like, "What do you mean you have to quit? This is what your dream, this is what you wanted. You've already committed weeks and weeks of training, of everything." And she goes, "I have to quit. I don't know I can't do this. This goal is so ridiculous, and I don't even know the software system myself. How am I going to train anyone? This is ridiculous. We're never going to make this happen." She already went to the worst case scenario that she had failed. Here's what I want you to understand right now, you guys. People would rather quit than fail right now. People would rather quit than fail. You know how crazy that is? I sort of was so back taken that her thought was to initially quit instead of just pull it into a micro mission like we do so naturally. But this is what you're facing. Whether you want to be right about the next generation or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. What I realize is my sister has had a very different experience than me. I played competitive sports my whole life. If you weren't good, you didn't play. Like, that's how it was. But for my sister, it was a different experience, and she hasn't really experienced failure in the same way. And you have a whole new generation coming up that knows themselves better than we probably even know ourselves sometimes now. They love to talk about their worries. They love to talk about their feelings. They love to let you get to know them, and they want to know you. But they are afraid to fail because the expectations on them are so high by our society, by our whatever it is. We could talk about that for days, but it doesn't matter because what's the mission? What's our goal? Your goal is to provide clarity that helps them feel safe. And you know what? If they are afraid that they're going to fail, they're going to quit. You look at your rates. My son, like I said, he goes to the School of Mines. For those of you who are familiar with the School of Mines, it's a very, very intense engineering school. It's very, very small. It's very rigorous. Their dropout rate is enormous. It is so high that they lose their freshman year population usually by like 30%. Because these are all engineer kids that are so excited, and then they go from being the smartest kid at their school to like not so smart, and it's hard. And they actually would rather quit than fail. So our job is to help people fail safely, pull it into a micro mission. So my sister didn't quit. And what instead I helped her understand is like, hey, what are we working on? Who knows? Yeah, you guys have big, crazy goals. But you know what? It was the same for her. What do you got going on this week? Well, we have a hiring event. Okay, pull it in. What do we need to do for the hiring event? She's like, I don't even know that. And she went to the worst case scenario of the hiring event. It's like, all right, what do you got to do today? How about just send out those 4 emails that you need to do and I know that sounds so silly, but for most people, they're paralyzed. They get paralyzed. You guys are just so used to it, and it seems so simple. Your staff is not lazy. Your new generation of workers is not lazy. They're afraid. They don't have clarity, and they are not going to ask for it. So break it down into micro missions. This is not micromanaging. I am not giving you them and telling them what to do. You just make the mission accomplishable. Thank you. You make it so they can win. Make it so people can win right now. People have felt like they're failing in every area of their life. And when they come to work and feel like a failure again, no wonder they're leaving. But there's a statement that they say in the Buddhist culture, wherever you go, there you are. Wherever you go, there you are. So wherever you go, there you are. So you better know what's going to drive you, but also where you're going to get stuck and how you push yourself out of the ABCs. Because the more you can push yourself out of the ABCs and realize there's no value in it and refocus on the mission and pull it into a micro mission when you're overwhelmed, you're going to be able to lead others to do that. You're going to help others feel safer. Because that's the whole point. You're never going to get everyone to agree. Who cares? But you can get everyone to align. Align back on the mission of what we're here for. So I'm going to show you a funny little video that helps put it into context. You may have been in this meeting recently. Look for the threat. I'm sure many of you have been in that meeting, right? Now, the moral of the story is like, don't kill yourself to be right about the threat. Doesn't matter sometimes, right? It doesn't matter, but remember that people are going to the worst case scenario because they're scared. They're nervous. They feel afraid. And so I offer you this idea to just keep getting curious about the complaints. As silly as that sounds, just remember that our goal is to provide clarity that helps people feel safe. That's the only way they can move forward. And so get curious about it, asking those questions. What are you actually worried about? Because again, they may not be able to tell you what they're excited about until you first address the things that they're worried about. And I promise you, I think you will notice an entire flip of connection, not only with your students and the parents, but also your staff, and pulling it into these micro missions, taking it step by step. And on the tough days, remember, what are you even here for? What is this all about? Because the truth is let's go back to the Congo. Everyone was super overwhelmed. We pull it into right here, right now. But those same challenges were still there. We still didn't have the training material. We were still short-staffed. We were still had all this chaos going on. But what we do in that moment, once people feel safe, is you refocus on the mission. What are we even here to do today? We're here to serve these people. We're here to make a difference in the lives that we're impacting today. How do we do that today? And you pull it in, and all of a sudden, people's creativity can kick back in. They can get out of the ABCs because they refocus on the mission. So when people are overwhelmed, the mission's just too big. Pull it in. And when people get stuck in the mud, pull it back out. It's always an in and out. What are we here for? And just take it step by step. You guys have got this. You have it. And you've picked careers that are so meaningful. And are there days that really suck? Absolutely. And are there things that are going to continue to hit us in our lives in all shapes and sizes? Absolutely. But together, as we embrace it and we keep moving forward and refocus on the mission and re-inspire each other in events like this and having great tools that help us do our job better so we can focus on the things that we're actually good at, suddenly our relationship with chaos improves. And you start to remember that it's not going anywhere. I just want to get better at navigating through it, moving faster out of the ABCs, realizing there's no value in it. So as you go off into your life after this amazing conference of being together and you get back to the airport or whatever you're dealing with and an unexpected event hits and you have that initial reaction, let yourself feel it for a minute. Feel the frustration, feel the disappointment, and then remember the mission. What am I even trying to accomplish? What am I here for? And realize how there's no value in those ABCs and move yourself out of it very quickly. And from that, I promise, your relationship with chaos is just going to keep improving and you're going to find the advantages and keep seeing the opportunities that it creates. So I thank you for what you do for parents like me over the past year of navigating this, and that you continue to do for the world that impacts the world in ways that sometimes I think you may have known at a point, but you may forget sometimes that you change the course of entire families and communities in ways that are so, so incredible. So thank you for what you do and your commitment to our world. Thank you. Thank you. Now, I'm happy to give you guys, before lunch, open up to any questions that you may have. What are you thinking? What are you left wondering? Don't be afraid. What do you think? Anything you're left wondering? What's your internal dialogue saying to you? Yes, thank you.
Hi, my question is, what if to move into the next level, but your partner or your coworker is stuck in avoidance or one of the ABCs?
So, thank you. So the question is that I get all the time is like, well, okay, I'm aware of it now, and I see that there's no value in staying in the ABCs, but everyone else around me is stuck in it. The goal is remember why they're stuck there. They're stuck there because they don't have clarity. And so they're stuck there because they're creating clarity in a different way. By blaming you, complaining about the process, or that's creating clarity. So you want to get curious about their complaint. What are they worried about? What is not clear for them? Because they're not going to tell you. So it's, again, refocusing on the impact. So if someone is stuck in a situation in front of you, like this deadline is stupid, I can't believe we're even doing this, this is ridiculous, it's saying, instead of joining in with them or like getting mad that they're just blaming and complaining, acknowledge it, because we all want to be acknowledged of how we feel for a second. Like, yeah, it does suck. Let's embrace it together and tell me more about what you're actually worried about. Because what if my sister's boss would have said that to her from the beginning? Hey, Jessie, this really sucks. This is going to be a crazy goal that we're trying to reach. But what are you actually worried about? What's scaring you right now? And she could be like, I don't even know how to use the software system that you're expecting me to train others on. And he could say like, me either, like, duh, we're all learning it. Let's take it step by step. Let's just focus here. So it's pulling them in and getting more real because people are already in the worst case scenario, like it already happened. So pull them into this moment. What are that individual in front of you? What are they worried about? Where do they not have clarity that they don't feel safe? Everything you want to do is to make people feel safe. The more people feel safe, they'll be willing to move into the assessing, creating, and executing. Anyone else? Yes.
Corinne, thank you very much
Thank
for your presentation. What role does like physiology play into all of this? I mean, think of like adrenaline that's just pumping in some of those moments, and just even get in control of your own mind and body in some of those moments.
So his question is really like, how do you practice this, I think, right? Because I'll be honest, it's taken me a long time to be really good at this because I've worked in very high threat, high stress situations. So what I would have you do right now is keep observing your reactions and responses in every situation. Observe people while you're around. Observe yourself. Listen to yourselves think. And then just keep asking, what's the actual impact right now? What am I actually worried about? Because physiologically, depending on your childhood, depending on how you grew up, depending on your genes, some people are just like wired for it or not. I think a lot of it is trainable too. Because the truth is, we all want to survive. And so at the core level of human beings wanting to survive, if you keep remembering that, figuring out what you need to feel safe right now, what others around you need to feel safe, it's usually information. It's clarity of the situation. And so, yes, there are people that are just better at it. It kind of seems like naturally, but I would say it was a development over their lifetime of learning a survival skill that got them to be able to survive in whatever environment they were in. But I think for us, we have to keep practicing it. Notice when you flip out. I'll be dead honest. I suck in my family life with the blaming. I get so stuck in the blaming for so much longer than I do at work. And then you ask yourself, what's the value in this? What am I, and just let yourself sort of process it a little bit more. Observe yourself a little bit more and just refocus on the mission. What am I actually trying to accomplish right now? And then suddenly the fear and those things slip away a little bit more. I heard someone say once, you can never have curiosity and fear at the same time. So I've started playing with that a little bit. Because if you're curious, I think you can still feel some uncomfortability, but you're being more curious about the actual impact. And so just start focusing on that a little bit more. Anything else? You guys, I'll be around, for lunch, so feel free. Hit me up on LinkedIn if you haven't. On social media is a great place. I post a lot of content there. And truly, just remember, embrace the suck on the days that suck, and celebrate the wins when they're good, because that's life. This is an incredible life that we're living, and incredible lives that you get to impact every day. And it's really, really cool for the things that you're up to. And I appreciate you being here and having me get to share my perspective on chaos with you all. So thank you.